We're back. It's the new year. Steve Dolan of Dolan's Dugout, your host. Steve, happy new year to you. I'm Ramon Scott of EastCountySports.com. And Steve, we just want to get back together and start doing the show here in the new year. We're going to talk a little prep basketball, Aztecs basketball, and Padres this week. Steve, the prep basketball poll is expected to be released in probably a couple of hours. John's probably calculating it right now, but you and I can start to take a guess. With all those tournaments that went on over the holiday, we were given 2 weeks, and you were presented with the tough task by Mr. Maffey of coming up with a top 10 this week. After wild tournaments, you have to figure out where all these other teams are coming from out of the county and even from out of the state, and who beat who and who's comparing to who. And who did you have in your top 10 poll this week in prep basketball?
Well, Ramon, first of all, Happy New Year. Good to be back in 2020, having 2020 vision. As far as my poll, and it was tough too, because like John Maffey said from the Union Tribune when he sent it out, study this, look at head-to-head and what's going on in these tournaments. So, of course, I kept St. Augustine at number 1. I moved Foothills Christian from East County up to number 2 over number 3 Cathedral Catholic. Why? Head-to-head. Foothills beat them head-to-head. That's why I've got them there. I kept Torrey Pines at 4. Number 5, I have Modern Day Catholic. Number 6, Christian from East County. Why? You know what? I have Poway at number 7, but it's simply head-to-head. Christian, as you know, Saturday night, overtime, on the road, beat Poway. And I'm going to brag for a little bit. I was the only one in the poll a couple weeks ago in the last poll to have Christian in the top 10. Even at that time, you asked why a couple weeks ago? Well, because they've had 2 losses, but they lost by 1 to Foothills Christian, the number 2 team in the county, in my opinion. And they lost by 8 to the number 1 team in the county, St. Augustine. Speaking of that, as you know, Friday night, we got a huge showdown at the Ryan Athletic Center on the Shadow Mountain / Christian High School campus, Friday night at 7:30. Of course, the Saints come to play Christian. To me, that's the game of the year so far in East County. You got, in my opinion, number 1 against number 6. So I want to concentrate on that game. And I mean, as far as my poll is concerned going down, I did have Santa Fe Christian at number 8 and San Diego at number 9. They were playing well. Another East County team at number 10, Helix. As you know, Helix won a big tournament during the Christmas / New Year's season. I mean, I got to think that Helix right now to me is a top 10 team because they're hot. I mean, you can never count out a John Singer coach team. So that's where my top 10 is. Where's your top 10 at now, right now?
Steve, when you start reading off those teams, and I don't know if it's just been our training or John's little hints were, well, he doesn't really hint at anything. He says, and you're welcome to vote for anyone you want. But I just had to share with you, if I can, Steve, look at this. This is my poll right here. I don't know if you could see that, but it's almost identical to yours. When you started reading off, it was just ironic because I said how tough it would be, but I have Saints, Foothills, Cathedral Catholic, Torrey Pines, Modern Day, Christian, Poway, Santa Fe Christian, and the only place where we differed is I had Mission Hills, number 9, and San Diego, number 10. And everyone can take a look there at what you got. Amazing, Steve, what you said on that. But anyway, I just thought that those were, the ironic ones that we had, almost the same exact poll, if you will. And you're going to attend that game this week, Saints and Christian. You said it would be a big one. I've got Saints and Agbo. You mentioned that you did a good job on your projecting of the poll, and I was the one that had Foothills Christian at number 1 heading into the holiday, but that was just after they beat that team from LA and improved to 10-0. So right now, I think that Agbo and the Saints are the best team in the county, and Foothills Christian right there with Yassine Garam at number 2. The big thing for Christian has been the play of Kobe Sanders and how well he's played. Pat Roberts also very strong for this team. They're very deep. They got a lot of guys that can contribute, and they've been the biggest riser, if you will, over these last couple of weeks over the holidays. They were outside of the poll, really maybe 14th or 15th. If you tabulate, someone had him maybe 10th, but to ride all the way up this week, and we'll see, like you said, we'll see when that poll comes out. But right now, it looks like Christian going to be right there at number 5, number 6, like where we had them. They were the biggest riser in the poll this week, and that's going to be a great league race as well. Foothills Christian will probably take care of business in their league, but it's going to be some great games involving Christian High School this season in their league games.
Yeah, and Ramon, you're talking about league play too, which of course is 2020. We're back. It's league play. As you know, in East County, we have 4 conferences, two girls, 2 boys in the Grossmont Conference. I know you've been following it closely. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me your predictions, both girls and boys, for how are the Grossmont Conferences going to finish this year, 2020?
We've got some interesting races on both sides and maybe some not so interesting ones. First, let's start off in the girls. I think one of the most interesting things in the girls' play this season is, will Mount Miguel win another league title? I mean, they've been winning the Grossmont league title for 2 straight decades under Coach Robbie Sandoval. But at the beginning of the season, they made some of the biggest news, or they didn't make the news, but when Selena Peterson decided that she would be going to Bonita Vista High School, where her dad is a teacher, so that makes sense. They've got a great program down there and some great players, and they're going to be one of the top teams in the county. But Mount Miguel, Robbie went out, and he's got 3 freshman girls already carrying this team, including Jennifer Moreno. She's already one of the best players in the county, and she's only a freshman, Steve, and she's got a couple of co-stars with her. Ishtel Rojo is another freshman who's looking really good. Xana Hurst, the daughter of former Mount Miguel coach Jimmy Hurst, you might remember. She's a freshman, and she looks to be like one of the top players in the county in the years to come. She's already very, very good and talented, and as people get to see her progression, I imagine she'll be a rapid progressor. She's already stepped up her play big time after just half a season. So Mount Miguel is still going to be my pick in the Hills League. El Capitan figures to give them the strongest challenge. El Capitan has been in a position, Steve, for this moment. They've brought together a group of girls that have grown around star Mackenzie Curtis, the daughter of Coach Darren Curtis. And they have some other very good players on the team as well. But they're also probably missing their second best player, who was injured before the season, and unfortunately is their second serious injury that's going to cost her a majority, if not all, of this season, and that's Jordan Grandy. She would have been a big, big part in playing a role to try to stop this El Capitan streak. And, of course, not really part of the equation, but Stephanie Adams, who's an elite volleyball player, would have been, with this basketball team if she didn't choose for volleyball to be her ultimate vocation as far as, in school is concerned, to help her education. I mean, she's going to be a top volleyball player at a collegiate level. She's focused on that. So El Capitan kind of had to build a little bit more around Curtis. They're definitely a big challenger. Those 2 games this season between Mount Miguel and El Cap will probably go as far as to decide the Hills League title, and those are going to be the games to go to this season. Don't want to slight, though, Helix. They really have been a really quiet contender. I don't know if they're up there with Mount Miguel and El Cap because they're untested in league play over the last couple of years. They've had some good teams under Coach Freddie Garrett, of course, who took over, and Ariana Duke is their best player. So Helix right now, they have a really good win-loss record. They might be 12-3, 13-2, something like that. As they go into league play, they're going to be a top contender. West Hills, also a top contender right now in the Hills League. This league is the deepest league of all the 4 leagues. Grossmont, who has been a champion of late in the Grossmont leagues and a CIF title as well, just 3 years ago under Coach Campbell. They might be slated at the bottom, but they're a pretty good team too. Kind of done it quietly so far. They're like 9-6. So going to take Mount Miguel. History's on their side, but this is the year, Steve, for your Lady Vaqueros, possibly, and it would be the story of the year. Even though Mount Miguel is down a little bit because of those transactions, these 3 freshman girls have already assured that Robbie if not the top contender this year, is going to be a top contender in the next 3 years as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on that before I move on to the next leagues?
Sure. Absolutely. Go ahead. We got one more girls' leagues and a couple boys' leagues to cover, too. What do you think in the Valley League?
Yeah, over in the Valley League, it's probably a 2-team race between Monte Vista and El Cajon Valley. El Cajon Valley might have the best player in Bean Gorges. She might be the top player in the Valley League. Also, the Taulanga sisters are pretty good for that team, and they're doing a nice job right now. This is an El Cajon Valley team that had some success last year. In fact, the games with Monte Vista were kind of the big games of the season, and I expect that to be the case this year. Monte Vista might be the slight favorite going in, and I'm going to pick Monte Vista to win the Valley League, although they could finish right there tied at the top, I think, this season, given what's going on in the rest of the Valley League. Monte Vista's got some very good players as well, but they've been hurt by injuries. And Meadow Delino, maybe their best player, has been sidelined at least half the season with a pair of injuries. She tried to come back maybe too early and suffered another injury. So they're going to be a little bit behind going into the start of league play. Santana, they maybe have not lived up to expectations so far. I was expecting a little bit more from them, as well as Granite Hills. Maybe they've overachieved a little bit. I think they have 5 victories so far, but I think they're the next 2 teams in the Valley League kind of battling out for 3rd and 4th. And Steve, get this, unfortunately, our last 2 contenders in the Valley, Valhalla and Steel Canyon, they're a combined 0 for 24 so far.
Yeah. Okay, looking at the boys' side, what do you think? First of all, what are you looking at in the Hills League? What are you projecting there?
I just see no one but Helix at this point. I think it's a typical Helix team. John Singer, he can whine about getting his football players late, and he definitely can whine about the gym situation. There's going to be some news coming out, I believe, on that shortly. Maybe the parents or boosters might be starting to get involved a little bit, because this is really getting frustrating. They can't get any bleachers. The gym looks great. It's beautiful from the inside and out, but they can't get any bleachers in there right now just because of kind of logistics, money, whatever. You got to build them. You can't just, buy them. You got to have them fitted. It's a big deal. It's a big process, and there's been some red tape of some kind. So that really sucks for Helix going in, but I think maybe the comfortability. I think the tough part's gone. I don't want to say tough. It's tough to play all your games on the road, right, Steve? But at least maybe they'll be a little bit more comfortable in these gyms that they're familiar with. West Hills, probably the second contender this year in the Hills League. They'll have a big 2 games at home against Helix. So I don't think Helix. They did play, I think, a couple of games at Grossmont last year. Maybe just 1 or 2. I'm not sure, that were scheduled for home. So I don't know if they're both going to be at West Hills. I assume they will be. They're the second contender in the league, with a chance maybe to get one of the wins against Helix, despite them both possibly being at home. Grossmont, probably 3rd after that. McCole Rodriguez is their best player. Valhalla, Steel Canyon, and Mount Miguel. Mount Miguel's winless so far. That's a rarity for Coach Rowlett. I mean, he's a great program. I'm sure he'll get it back together, but they're struggling a bit right now. I got Steel Canyon rated just a little bit above them, and Valhalla had some experience from their championship team from last year, but it's all Helix in the Hills League.
And we got one more league to talk about. What about the Valley League? What do you think of the Boys Valley League this year?
I'll give you one guess who my top team is going to be, brother. Yeah. Awesome. Well, here's the thing. El Cap, they have Jake Fitzner. Jake Fitzner is probably the player of the year in the Valley League this season if everything goes according as planned. So they might be the top contender under first-year head coach Elias Tota. And it'd be a nice story for Elias. He likes to talk about, I'm a young coach. He's 24 years old now. He's a future coaching star. If he wasn't our media, we could have him, cut him some, because he's kind of a journalism guy. But they're the top contender, I think, in the Valley League. But watch out, Steve, for Granite Hills. They just added Dion Spear, a transfer from Christian, and he's made an immediate impact with his team. The Eagles have some good players, McKay Roberts, John Verzich on that team, and John Yaku as well. They look like they should be better, but now they've added Spear, And he looks like a player. He came in first game, hit the game-winning shot, had a big game scoring, and had another nice game scoring, and kind of made everybody else around him better in their last win. So I think Granite Hills is kind of the surprise contender right now, and those will be the big games against El Cap. Don't want to forget about Monte Vista. This is definitely a 3-team race in the Valley that could easily go home and home in all of these 3 series. So El Cap, Granite, Monte Vista are the contenders. El Capitan is my choice. Santana and the Braves, they're not doing much of anything this year, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, like you say, my Vaqueros will definitely walk with Elias this year. They should be very good. I want to talk about the #1 basketball team in San Diego County right now. How about those San Diego State Aztecs? They just have been ranked #7 in the nation, the Associated Press poll. And I think the #7 is a very interesting thing for the Aztecs because Kimpon, which is one of the many, many services that rate things, they've done odds for the rest of the year. And right now, the Aztecs are projected to be at least a 7-point favorite in every game, and they're #7 in the nation. The only thing, Ramon, that's going to be hard for them as far as moving up is the rest of their schedule. They have like 4 quadrants, and the quadrant 1 where they are, they don't have any quadrant 1 games left. So it's going to be hard for them to move up like in the NET, the net rankings, which are what they're based on now. They've been #1 there. They're not going to stay #1 because of what their competition is going to be. I mean, like for instance, this week they go to Wyoming, and Wyoming's awful, but Wyoming is also an awful place to play. I mean, you're at 7,200 feet. That's where the Aztecs will be Wednesday night. They got more altitude. And then, of course, this Saturday night, Boise State comes here. And as you know, Boise State year in and year out always gives them a tough game. If I could, there's another big name team coming to San Diego this week on Thursday night. Gonzaga, which is #1 in the nation, plays at the University of San Diego. And it's been interesting for Gonzaga so far, Ramon. They've had 2 conference games. The first one, they were down at halftime at Portland, then came back and won. And this weekend at home, they only won by 5 against Pepperdine. So as for a Gonzaga team, that's struggling. But I'll tell you what, when they go to USD's 0-2 in conference, and this is, they're having a very down year, having lost their top 4 players from last year. I don't think it's going to be much of a game, but if people are looking for a big-time college game, yeah, you got Boise State at San Diego State on Saturday night, but don't forget Thursday night, Gonzaga at USD. So we got some big-time college basketball in San Diego this week.
Yeah, and you talk about the KenPom ratings, and they also mentioned #1 in the net ratings, and they could drop because of that strength of schedule, but also #3 in the Massey ratings, #6 in Sagarin, 13th in the ESPN BPI, and like you said, 15th in KenPom, and I think that might be more representative, even though I've already touted them with you as certainly an Elite 8 caliber team. And boy, it almost looks like, other than the resumes, maybe San Diego State and Gonzaga are confused, right? Maybe the Aztecs should be #1 and Gonzaga should be #8 right now.
There's no reason not to be. I mean, the Aztecs are undefeated. And Ramon, one thing right now, Joe Lunardi from ESPN, who to me is the best at rating where teams will go. Right now, he has San Diego State as the #2. And the great thing is, if San Diego State's the #2 seed, San Diego State would never have to leave California before the Final Four, I don't think, because the first 2, the NCAA regional, they could play in Sacramento, and then the Sweet 16s in LA at the Staples Center, where San Diego State's already beat Utah this year. So theoretically, San Diego State could get to the Final Four by never leaving California. Long way to go, but right now, everything's looking up.
Right, and this is the tough part of the schedule, right? I mean, Wyoming, that's always going to be tough because of the elevation. And then you mentioned Fresno State, and I think they've won 4 out of the last 5 games against the Aztecs.
Yeah, this weekend, Boise State's here this weekend, but then the Aztecs in a week or so have to go to Fresno State. They already just played them, but Fresno State has always been that thorn in San Diego State's side. I mean, I believe Fresno had won, 5 straight regular season games against the Aztecs until the Aztecs beat them on New Year's Day. So that's a tough part of the schedule. And then, again, Boise State coming up and all. But again, there's no feature teams, because when I looked at the AP Top 25 poll today, Ramon, not only is San Diego State #7, but nobody else from the Mountain West even gets a vote. Utah State, who was supposed to be so good, they don't even get any votes in the AP Top 25 poll anymore. And so again, San Diego State's schedule from here on out is theoretically very weak. But on the other hand, you got to watch it. I mean, you look across America this year, things that have happened as far as, Who would have thought Stephen F. Austin would have gone into Duke and beat them? Games like that. Who would have thought Kentucky would have lost, I believe it was to Evansville? I mean, those things are happening. So you got to be careful. Will San Diego State go undefeated? Theoretically, yes, but probably not. Just because when you're playing this many games and this many trap games, you got to remember, if you're the other team, San Diego State's your big game of the year. How can you make yourself a name if you're in the Mountain West the rest of the year? Beat San Diego State. That's about all that's left.
We're just setting ourselves up for one of these San Diego disappointments ultimately in the end. Unless we can finally win something in our lifetimes, a national championship, wouldn't that be something special? But right now, Steve William Hill came out with their new odds this week. San Diego State 30-1. How about $100 on San Diego State, and up to $3,000 we win this national championship?
It's amazing how the odds keep going down. I know last week San Diego State and Florida were both 35-1. I mean, when the season started, San Diego State wasn't even in that picture. I mean, remember, San Diego State started the season outside the AP 25 poll, and I thought it was ironic when it took a last-second shot by Malachi Flynn to beat a very bad San Jose State team. That's when people started recognizing San Diego State because they're undefeated and they come in, basically number 24, 25, climbed all the way to 7. I mean, again, the only thing to be careful of is if San Diego State does get upset in the Mountain West, they're going to fall quite a bit just because, again, theoretically there's, quote, no competition in the conference. But again, the problem with the Mountain West, and I've traveled the Mountain West before, you get into elevation. Again, Utah State was elevation, Wyoming, Colorado State, Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, pretty much every game you play in this conference is more times than not going to be pretty close to mile-high altitude, and that's going to be the one thing that take a toll. And if I could say one other thing I don't like about the Mountain West schedule, and this all relates to TV because of the way you have to do it, pretty much your games are always on Tuesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Saturday. So when you take a road trip, you're taking 9 road trips. You're going somewhere, coming home, going somewhere, coming home. It used to be you would travel by twos. Like, for instance, if you played Wyoming, you'd play Colorado State on the road. If you played Air Force on the road, you'd play New Mexico. So I thought it was a lot better back in the day when you could play them 2 at a time on the road, just be gone 3 or 4 days as opposed to this coming and going all the time. I just don't like that, and I get it. It's about TV. It's about money, but I just wish they could travel by twos, just like the Pac-12 did this weekend. For instance, if you were USC or UCLA, you played at Washington or Washington State, and you stayed up there for a couple of days. That's the way it should be. It's not that way. I'll be curious in this new contract, which theoretically right now is with CBS and Fox. We'll see how that works out.
Well, I thought it was a good sign when they went into Utah State, listed as a 3-point underdog, 3.5-point underdog in that game, and coming out, Utah State played pretty well, but San Diego State played way better, and they avoided one of those trap games. And I almost wish, Steve, if we were going to lose one game before heading into the NCAA tournament, I'd rather it be some nondescript game than maybe a game that they were expected to have a challenge in. That way you could think of it as just a mental focus and not that you were beat on the court by somebody. But again, they won't be underdogs likely again this season. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen when they're expected to win each and every game. But you talk about the teams that they're up there with, Gonzaga, Duke, Kansas, Baylor. The other undefeated is we're tug of war for that undefeated map with the Auburn Tigers, and also Butler, kind of a team that reflects the San Diego State culture, a smaller team. But, we're ahead of teams like Michigan State, Oregon, Ohio State, Maryland, Louisville, and Kentucky. Forget those guys.
Yeah, that's great. And as you know, Ramon, there's one other team in San Diego we wanted to talk to before we run out of time, and that's the Padres. It's interesting because when you look at it, they're, I believe, 80 days away from opening day. I thought it was interesting today on MLB. I always go on MLB's website every day. 2 stories there caught my eye. Number 1 was 9 hitters who need to improve in 2020. And we think Padres automatically think Will Myers, but no, they didn't say Will Myers. They said Manny Machado is one of the 9 hitters who really needs to elevate his game this year. And I agree, because I thought last year Machado underperformed incredibly, but maybe it was, going to a new team, new league. And I thought, of course, Bryce Harper being the other big name that signed last year, he also underperformed. The Phillies were supposed to win the World Series, et cetera, and they were a 500 team basically. But there's that. And another thing that kind of disappointed me, and again, these are all just opinions, but they had their first MLB power rankings of 2020. And the Padres were not even in the top 20. And that's concerning because when you look at it, look at the National League. There's the Padres are definitely better than Miami, definitely better than Pittsburgh, and in their own division, probably better than the Giants and Colorado. But other than that, is there any other team that you can absolutely say the Padres are better than at this point? And the answer is probably not. But of course, there's always teams that come out of nowhere too. So hopefully they'll be one of those teams that comes out of nowhere this year. Even though 2020 was supposed to be their year in their minds, maybe they can come out of nowhere because they got a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I still have concerns. If this is 2020, I don't know what general fans' timetable is for this project. And, things are looking up. Things are looking exciting. We're all excited to see what this team has to offer. And the lineup, the lineup's very, very interesting, especially like we talked about last time with the addition of a guy like Tommy Pham. But once you get past, Tatis, Pham, Machado, Hosmer, and then you start filling in. Are you looking at a Trent Grisham there at that point? Mejia at catcher, Franchi Cordero possibly, playing in that lineup, and Jurickson Profar. I mean, he's solidified. I'm sure he'll be the second baseman, but that's a lineup that will have to grow and learn again. Unfortunately, despite the veteran presence there in the middle of the lineup, and then the rotation again doesn't necessarily match up against these other West contenders, much less the rest of the league. Paddock, Richards, Davies, I guess Lucchesi and Denilson Lamet. So I think those are concerns. Hey, good signing this week. Keeping Craig Stammen on board. I mean, the anchor really of that bullpen as far as logging a bunch of innings. For Yates and I guess Pomeranz, the left-hander. Will be the left-handed setup. So I don't know. Still have major concerns heading into pitchers and catchers reporting in just about 5 or 6 weeks or so. And I'm going to have guarded optimism once again, despite all the excitement that will surround Padres Twitter, I guess, not getting any respect nationwide. And I imagine that the Padres, you consider where they're ranked right there, talking about not being respected. I imagine that their stock might go up nationally, but I think locally could be a bit of a letdown. And I don't want to say that because this is supposed to be possibly the target year.
Yeah, it's funny because you just don't know. I mean, they definitely come out of nowhere. I mean, they have to have a lot of people out of their career years. And I like what you said earlier about Craig Stammen because I know, Ramon, one of the things I do when I keep the statistics for Fox Sports San Diego and the Padres home games, I'm always to watch the bullpen and see who gets up. And we used to just joke about how literally every game Stammen got up. I mean, he was just, he just unreal how much he can pitch. I was really happy to see them keep him because a week or so ago, the big names have signed back. Of course, Steven Strasburg, Garrett Cole, Anthony Rendon all signed. But after that, one of the 11 biggest names, according to MLB.com, was Craig Stammen. And I get it because the guy's an Iron Man. He pitches, it seems like, every day. I was really happy to see that for the Padres. I think, like you say, the back end of their bullpen, I think, is pretty much solidified right now. You got Stammen, Pomeranz, Yates. Munoz looked good last year, and you got a lot of other guys in the mix too. So I think that part of the game is good. I think what they're hoping is anymore if a starting pitcher goes 6 innings, they hold a parade for him the next day because that's all they ever pitch. But I think that they're hoping they can be ahead after 6 innings, because if they are, they've got a lock-up bullpen like you used to have, like with Linebrink, Bell, Hoffman. I don't know if it's that quality, but it's certainly getting there. I mean, I think that bullpen's certainly getting there, and I think the Padres certainly are going to be a team to be reckoned with if they can be ahead after 6 innings this year just because of the back end of that bullpen.
Yeah, and the other signing that we didn't mention that since last time we talked was Pierce Johnson, also to shore up that bullpen. Remember, he was a first-round draft choice back in 2012. So, they spent a little bit of money on him. I believe he might have been he spent time with the Giants, but he was maybe in Japan. I didn't catch all the story. I know he's had some success, but I think more of the story is that he's a 28-year-old former first-round draft choice, and the Padres did spend a little bit of money on him, so he's going to be expected on the back end along with guys like Matt Strahm, kind of a lefty-righty situation there in the 5th or 6th inning. So that's where they'll stand there, and I think they feel like their bullpen is very competent going into the season. I think that's what they should feel is a strong point of the team. maybe concerns about the bench. I think Greg Garcia is our great guy from Valhalla. He's Mr. Utility and can do a lot. But, having Hedges being the other catcher now, and maybe Manny Margot, Will Myers filling in as platoon roles now, potentially, or just going up against left-handed pitchers. So, I don't know. I'm still some concerns. I'll be, cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a successful season. But just seeing what the Giants and Diamondbacks have done, and not to mention, of course, the Dodgers, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Exactly. And just a reminder, again, opening day is 80 days from now. This being, Monday, January 6th, 80 days from now, on Thursday, March 26th, the Rockies are Rays. I would imagine, as of right now, they probably Garrett Richard would be the Padres starting opening day pitcher. Chris Paddock would have a chance, but anyway, there's a lot of excitement. I know one thing too for Padres fans. This Saturday, January 11th, is the Padres Fan Fest. Kind of a cool event. It's an interactive event. People can go down and get autographs, meet people up close, players, and some of the behind-the-scenes people, and all. It'll be really cool. So don't forget that. Let's just hope for the best this year.
All right, Steve, it was great spending a half hour with you to get underway, and we'll have more Padre talk as the weeks go along, and maybe we'll see how I'm doing in my picks in prep basketball, and whether or not they come to fruition. But interesting games out there. We'll keep you posted on EastCountySports.com when those top matchups come into play. And of course, Steve, you'll be out there. My last question for you: you've seen countless Aztec basketball teams throughout the years. So wondering where you're going to rank these guys right now. We've had really two deep, strong teams in the last, decade and a half. Where do you think these guys can go? I've got them as an Elite Eight team. If we don't get there, tough on us. Sweet 16, though, has got to happen. But, hey, this team, look, they're ranked 7th. Are they the best Aztec team out there? Maybe not the best team, maybe the best team without a top individual, even though Flynn is the star.
Yeah, without a Kawhi Leonard. Ramon, I'll say it this time. I'm going to cop out on this right now. I'm going to say they're one of the top 3 because they've been to the Sweet 16 twice. We'll see how that plays out. The thing that concerns me, though, in the NCAA tournament, you're one and done, and how often do you see, you just the way the ball can bounce in that tournament. You see so many, not so often that a 3 will beat a 14 or 2 will beat a 15, or it's happened once that I'm doing it backwards, where a number 16 is beat a number 1, because usually the 1, 2s, and 3s advance to the Sweet 16. But again, I would hate to see San Diego State be a number 5 seed, because 5s play 12s and 12s beat 5s a lot. So again, I'm going to cop out on this right now. I'm going to say it's the 3rd best team in Aztec history, but if they can get to the Elite Eight, then they're the best ever. That's my cop out. That's where I am with it right now.
I don't have any problem with that, and we're going to have some exciting league games, but mostly some exciting tournament action heading our way. And one more, Steve. I always keep you long, but you're the official statistician for the television crews that come in to San Diego State and the University of San Diego. But how do you feel personally about the Aztecs television situation? You can't ignore what the critics say on Twitter. Not the critics, the fans, us. And how difficult it is sometimes. I've got a box where I can tune to Stadium TV. Okay, so it's kind of like a channel for me, but not everyone knows how to get that. When you go to get the game on Facebook, sometimes you're presented with different options, and an inexperienced web surfer can end up clicking on a link that takes you to some other kind of potential link that really isn't a link to the game at all until you go back and actually find the right one. So how do you feel about it? Do the announcers, some of them are veteran announcers that you work with, guys like Doug Gottlieb and Steve Quist. Mentioned Doug Gottlieb. He actually has San Diego State number 1 in the country right now as well. But guys like that, is there any chitter chat between you guys about Mountain West basketball? I know they just added some personnel this week in their conference office to kind of help with this situation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did in the conference office. As far as right now, yeah, it is hard to see the games on Facebook at all. Next year, I think, Fox is maybe a better option than ESPN, because you already tied into Fox Sports San Diego, although within a year that's going to change with Sinclair taking over. But I think having Fox next year will help because Fox does a lot of, they do a lot of West Coast basketball already with the Pac-12. I will say one thing about Facebook. I've worked several times with a man out of LA named Ari Wolf, and Ari's very good. He's very good play-by-play. I did one Facebook game this year with Ari Wolf and Doug Gottlieb, and I thought, that's an excellent crew too. I mean, the announcers are all excellent on Facebook and all. It's just like you say, a matter of getting there. And I'm just hoping next year. I think one thing next year too, Ramon, San Diego State's going to be coming off a great season. That they'll get more network games because, frankly, this year their home non-league schedule was not very strong. So I think next year you'll be seeing them on TV a lot more. But yeah, you're still going to be dealing with the Facebooks, with the those type of things, with the stadium. But stadium is rising now too. It's just the problem is the younger crowd knows how to get there. The older crowd like me, it's a lot harder. So we'll see how that plays out.
That's why we send you to the games, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. But again, hey, thanks so much for having me. And just if I could, the one final reminder for people: this Friday night, that's St. Augustine at Christian boys basketball game at 7:30 in the Ryan Athletic Center. That's going to be a keeper. That's going to be worth it.
Let me give you, and I'll send us out of here, but let me just give you some breaking news. John Mappy has just sent out the poll for this week, so it will be number 1, Saints and Steve, number 8, Christian, taking into the battle this week. Looks like some people might have forgotten to check the also eligibles.
Yeah, I mean, you got some people. I mean, we're East County guys. We check the East County teams, but we check the North County teams too because you've got Mission Hills in your top 10. But I just think, again, Christians 14-2. They've come within 1 point of Foothills Christian, within 8 of St. Augustine. Those are the only 2 games they've lost. Time for Christian to go out and maybe, I guess the only way Christian's going to get people's attention is by beating St. Augustine Friday night, which is easier said than done. But I'm looking forward to that game and looking forward to another DOLAN'S dugout with you next week, Ramon. Thanks so much for having me.
And this is a home game, so this is the one if they're going to get it. And let me real quick: Saints, Foothills, Cathedral, Torrey Pines, Mater Dei, Poway, SFC, Christian, San Diego, and Mission Hills. It's almost exactly, if you put our 2 polls together, it's kind of, except for Christian, it's kind of identical to what we were talking about. All right.
I guess some weren't paying attention Saturday night when Poway lost at home to Christian because Poway's still 2 spots ahead of Christian. And, I just don't see any justification in that. But again, for the Patriots, the only way to justify it is to go out and pull the upset of the year against St. Augustine on Friday night. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, great point, Steve. There we got. That's just those 2 teams are backwards in the rest of the polls. I mean, Christian should have been 6th, Poway probably 7th or 8th right now. 11 straight wins for the Christian Patriots. So that's how good they are right now. For Steve Golan, I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ron. Everybody have a good day.